I want to share with you some basic ideas that'll be really beneficial towards the end of your project when you're ready for deployment. They'll cover mainly the aspects of web maintenance and deployment, but generally they'll be beneficial to the end of your project right before launching whatever project it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first aspect, which is as we begin our project, from the very start, we have to have a focus on towards what's coming up at the end. While we could wait until all of our design, all of our development, all the little revisions are done to start thinking about where we're going to put this project online, that's kind of too late in the game to think about it. If we plan those things out early on, it's going to be a little bit beneficial, more beneficial to what we're going to need in the future. There's actually a really great article you can check out on the BOAG world where they talk about from the standpoint of working with clients, from the standpoint of working on a team, whose responsibility is that to secure a domain name, to pay for that domain name, to renew it every year? And they make some great arguments back and forth about who might be the best person for that. And again, really to at least set your mind to realize that often that's our responsibility. As the expert in the field, people will look to us to make those decisions instead of us just relying on them maybe guessing or knowing from convention of what they're supposed to do. And really this affects quite a few things here, and I've had them listed there. The fact that every year they'll have to purchase a domain name and renew it. Every month they'll have to pay for a server. That data that goes on the server has to be backed up, has to be controlled. If they're continually adding to it, has to be managed in some way. And really another part that's key to our projects and kind of what we definitely need to talk about at the beginning when we start in our discovery phase is what's going to happen when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to revisions, which, as we know, the web is an iterative platform. It always changes. It's going to be important that we have something in place that says if the client has things they need to change, if it's a freelance project, there's something in place that allows them to make those changes and you are compensated. If it is a in-house, you're on a development team project where you're not overwhelmed by these minute changes that could be handled by someone else or handled by the client themselves. So again, these are kind of really great ideas that we might overlook initially with the focus on the launch of the project, but are going to be essential overall to what we're doing. And the last of these I mentioned is definitely a key one: analytics, and knowing once we start getting our users using our site and tracking what we would call insights, basically data about how they're using the site. That really all affects everything else we're doing. Do we need a different domain that's better for their usage? Where are they coming from? What service? How can we alter what we're doing for that? Does our server meet their requirements as far as technology or capacity? And then as far as what we need to fix, what we need to revision, we can look at what the users are doing, we can make changes. And again, so all those are kind of interconnected, related to each other, and that's why I have them all kind of grouped together. And it's essential, again, to at the start of your project, to start here, identify that in your discovery phase, so when you get towards the end, you're ready to launch, you don't then start looking for who owns the domain name, where am I going to host, etc. But with those ideas now in mind, the next thing we want to look at is that domain name. The essential idea is that every website that is online, instead of typing in the numerical address for 192. whatever, instead we give it that nice pretty domain name that usually is the business name, .com, .net, .gov, .org, whatever the capacity is for organization, nonprofit, etc. And then usually it also entails maybe a part of a marketing campaign. There's a lot of great usage for a domain, and really the idea is to create something simple and memorable for the audience that's going to be using the site. Typically, domains can be as cheap as, and I know you've probably seen them for as cheap as $1, $3, but typically they're about from $7 a year to $25 a year. Anything on either extremes of those is, if it's much less than that, you're probably going to pay quite a bit more when you go to renew it. That's usually how they get you in the door. And then if it's anything beyond that, you're paying for a very specific domain name, what we might consider like a vanity name, or really just maybe someone squatting that domain name that you really want. You couldn't get it any other way, but it's essential to your campaign. You might end up paying, and the number goes extremely high at some points, to thousands of dollars. Really what we want to do is the fact that the web is so ubiquitous, it's so easy to find what people are looking for. It's usually not necessary that we kind of invest in the domain name is not necessarily the most key thing. A great site is key, good content is key, good improvements, good usability, etc. We can sometimes work around not having the most ideal domain name if we have the other aspects right. With that in mind, though, there are some really helpful resources you can take a look at. One of the things that people immediately go for is when I have an idea for a site, whether it's a book I'm coming out with, a game, it is a client name, and I'm trying to figure out what .com to purchase for them. It's nice to have some tools that are helpful to you. There's actually one I will show you called PanAbhi that's kind of really great. In that it's cute, in that you can type in a domain name, you can put in multiple words, and it'll try to come up with some kind of combination. So if you say, we have a juicing company that puts out different types of spinach juices or mango juices, put those two words in there, and it'll try to combine them together and make some kind of really cool juicemangosite.com or whatever for you. And it comes up with really cute names. Here's an important part, though, is that typically why I use a site like this one, and they have good documentation for what I'm about to tell you, as well as why I use another site called Hover for when I'm looking for domain names, is that if you use the wrong site for this, a lot of times they'll let you search for it, and if you don't buy it right that moment, they'll go ahead and buy it, and so when you come back to purchase it later on, you'll pay an exclusive price because it's already been purchased. So what's really great about PanAbhi, what's really great about Hover, and there's others like them, is that they indicate to you no matter what, you can type in any domain name. If you come up with a cool idea, that doesn't matter if you don't buy it right now, we won't buy it from you. We'll let you come back and buy it on your own. That's actually a really cool thing. On PanAbhi, they talk about karma and some really fun things, but the idea is really simple, is saying that feel free to explore, feel free to experiment. We're not going to exploit you and take that domain and upcharge you later on. Kind of cool. The one I've been using quite often for purchasing domain names, because I like that they have a consistent, it is $15 the whole time for an initial purchase as well as transfer, no extra fees. Some services will charge you, again, less for the initial but more for the every year. Some services will charge you for extra features like securing locking down your domain name, locking it down for other people purchasing, hiding your confidential information, whereas Hover includes all of that information. It's really clean. It's by one of the original domain providers called 2Cows, so they actually definitely know what they're doing, so a good recommendation if you're looking to purchase a domain name and have some quality there. Again, as far as who's supposed to buy that if you're working on a client project, there's, again, I'll refer you to that article. There's some good information there, but typically this is where we would come in. We would handle this. The client would either reimburse us. There's a really cool idea called affiliate programs where we would pay every year for the domain, but our client would reimburse us through an invoice, and we can actually get a little bit of a percentage on there even though we're buying them through Hover. So kind of a neat concept. You probably have heard the term affiliate program before. That's really what it's referring to. Besides having a domain name, that's where the site exists on, that's how the address, like to the house, how I get there, but the actual house where it lives, where it physically lives on the internet, is a server, and that's kind of the next part we have to look at. We have to have hosting somewhere where this site exists. You may currently be pushing your sites to a free hosting service, to something like GitHub where we have GH pages that lets us host it, all kinds of things like hosting even on Dropbox. There's lots of great things that are free, but typically clients are going to need a much more specific resource that allows for custom web applications, unique technologies, or lots of bandwidth. The minute you start pushing large video files, large media files to any one of those free services, you get into a little bit of a spot and have to upgrade, because that's not what they're meant for. They're meant for initial ideas, not full-blown projects sometimes. I definitely will point out a couple of really common services for you. If you do just a little bit of searching, you'll realize that there are thousands, if not at least many, many hundreds of hosting services and different plans you can get, as well as domain providers. Some of the ones I've been using lately that are really great, one of the ones is MediaTemple, which I've found to be really excellent in that as its initial service, it is only $25 a month, and it is quite expansive in what it provides. You could actually host several hundred, if at least maybe 2 is their limit, 200 websites that are smaller on the same shared server, which is kind of cool. That means if you're only doing little projects for now, you could actually pay $25 a month, have your clients repay you again through an affiliate program, and you're actually making money on that particular idea, which is kind of really cool. So something to look at as far as that goes. But what I really like about them is that they're not limited to just their little smaller hosting service, which, and I'll show you something on their site because it kind of helps us to understand the concept here, is that if I pay for this, oh, and look at that, it's $20, not $25, is that this supports 100 gigabytes of storage for a smaller account. Perfect. You can host up, there it is, 100 websites, and you get 1,000 email accounts. For a lot of the little things we'll do, this is perfect. You'll never need more than that. You have a 1 terabyte bandwidth cap, and they'll even let you upscale that as you need for sites that get popular throughout the month. This is a per month price. But what I really like is that if you need more there's always additional plans you can grow with. If eventually you build the next big thing that has millions of people, MediaTemple makes some great servers, great technologies that will scale appropriately, and they can easily shift over to one of the dedicated servers. And really what's neat is as you get to that point, you're no longer just talking about how many email accounts, how many gigabytes. You're talking about machine performance, like how fast is the connection between the hard drives on that machine and the processor. And so that's really a completely different level. You would not pay for this. You can see the amounts are kind of extreme here, but this is for people that this is what they do. On the web, they have millions of people every day looking at their content. There can be no delay. That's like we know on the web, things have to show up the first time, or we just probably won't go back the second time. This is really key for that. So again, I like MediaTemple because you can grow with them. They have an affiliate program. They have really good support. As an alternative, again, one spectrum to the other, another site that people are really enjoying a lot of hosting is something called A Small Orange. It's a little bit smaller. It's kind of like that organic version. It's got a little bit smaller of an audience segment, but they offer really great discounts and prices. And actually, if you look at some of their pricing, it ends up being where if you are just getting into this, you just want to delve and dip your toe in the water, you can do this for a very low amount, $35 a year, which ends up being single dollar amounts per week or per month, which is kind of exciting. So definitely something to look at as far as how can I get into this idea and start playing around. And as someone that's beginning using the web, being able to have something to just mess around with, to play, to try a new technology on is wonderful, and that's going to be essential to what you have. Buy a domain name, buy a hosting account. They're inexpensive. You can do it for, as you can see here, under $40 for the whole thing for at least a year, and then you'd be able to throw whatever you want at it and to try new technologies to just see what it looks like to have your work online, and that's going to be kind of excellent. Again, as far as hosting goes, this is something you would handle for the client because you would need all of the connection information, you would need all of the database information, everything that needs to make the site function, you need that. So some clients may sign up on their own and then they'll have to provide you that information, or they may, again, you would invoice them separately. Maybe they're purchasing it through you through some kind of affiliate program, and then you would handle that for them. This is something we need to address. Clients aren't really familiar with this particular concept in most cases. Another aspect that we need to look at is when we start building for the web, it's typically static websites. They start with just HTML, CSS, whatever we type in the code is what shows up on the web, simple pages. Nothing changes unless we are the ones that change it. Immediately we grow from that into how can I build more expansive projects? How can I get it where the client can edit their own content? How can I get it where users can add their own content? A lot of the big sites that you use every single day that are, in quotes, social media sites are those that are driven by user content. Something like a Google product would be really nothing without the people that were pushing that content and making it a better product, making it something useful. The web is better with people using it. That just makes sense. So it also makes sense that we eventually need to move from making static websites to making what we could call dynamic websites that have a lot more capabilities from the standpoint of what we can add, what we can do. One of the initial approaches you could look at is if you're starting out with a simple installation of maybe Adobe products and you have something like Dreamweaver, there's actually a couple of really neat things that are built into Dreamweaver, and there's another tool that Adobe has. They may or may not continue it going into the future, but if you're just, again, looking to just start off in a really simple way, they're the ideas of templates you can build in a Dreamweaver where you basically are setting specific HTML comments worded a certain way that Dreamweaver recognizes, and you can identify this is a templated page. The user is not allowed to edit anything but this one paragraph, this one title, and then they can use a tool like Dreamweaver or a tool like Contribute to edit those pages and not change anything else. It's segmented, it's simple, but it does kind of start you along that path. And actually, in a very similar way, I'll point out to you something that does not require the overhead of an Adobe product, and this is called Cushi. And again, when you take that word CMS, that abbreviation, it stands for Content Management System, and do a little bit of research, you'll find there are many, many, many CMS solutions out there. I'm going to show you two of them. Cushi is one that's great because it is extremely simple. You provide this web-hosted service, your login for your site. They provide you with a login to give your client. When your client logs in, after you've identified via classes, very simple idea, you basically apply a class to specific elements on your page, and whatever you identify as having that class, when the client logs in, they'll be able to make those changes. You can actually see if you watch this little video they have played here, and we'll just kind of fast forward through a little bit to one of the sections later on, is after you've logged in and made those adjustments, we'll just give that a second there, is all the client's going to need to do is they'll see specific input areas where they'll be able to add information in, which is kind of great. Oh, it looks like that's not showing up. That's okay. We'll look at that another time, or I'll let you look at that on your own. The idea is very simple, though, in that it's all you need to implement is on your page, you would simply add in a class for a div or for a title or for a list item or for a picture that is the class of Cushi. And whatever you identify there, when the client logs in or when the user logs in, what they would need to change is simply presented to them. They would type in a new paragraph into an editable field that gives them bold, italic, again, other controls, which is kind of great, and they can move on from there. So a very simple solution. There are free programs, there are paid programs. As far as their pricing goes, really a neat idea if you're looking for a simple way to begin allowing for dynamic content. Moving forward to another spectrum, there's actually a really great web service you may have heard of before, WordPress.com. It began as a simple way for people to create blogs online, weblogs, and be able to add pictures, videos, etc., etc. We're all familiar with that concept. But because that platform was so successful, they actually open sourced it and made it where you can take the core that runs all of those sites across the globe and run that on your own server. And what's neat about this is it started out as a simple way to self-host your own blog, and it became, let's use this really powerful tool to become a content management system, a CMS. And now you can make many things with this, and none of them have to look like WordPress. They do not have to have a blog feature. They do not have to have a comments feature, etc. that you would typically see. They can look like anything, but you get the benefit of a backend you can log into, that you can give access to multiple users, that you can completely visually customize. Feel free to look through some of the showcase that WordPress.org has. It's once you get comfortable with the really expansive amount of documentation they have, meaning that it's really easy to learn WordPress because there's videos, there's tutorials, a lot of sites push content out about how to work with it. Once you're comfortable with that, building a site, making it custom for yourself is very straightforward. Taking a theme and starting from scratch and making it on a grid, making it responsive, making it whatever you need to be is very straightforward. It requires effort, it requires understanding of the framework, but they've got lots of documentation, and when you're done, what you can produce will be dynamic, will allow for multiple users to work with it, and it can look like anything you want. So definitely one that I recommend as far as moving beyond the simple this is a basic site onto something more. The last one I'll mention, I didn't pull that page up here, so I'll grab it right now, is just Expression Engine. And what I like about this site is that, or this tool, is that it is basic. It is similar to WordPress, where it has some of the pieces that are that allow you to build forward, but it's more specific to ideas like e-commerce or ideas like user management of particular types of content. It is much more of, as I say here, a web publishing platform. And what's great about this is that you can see here that they have all types of different publishing, whether it's I'm adding new content that's part of a store, I am trying to make it easier for my users to revision their information, allow them to upload images and to resize those images, etc. There are all kinds of really neat aspects of this particular tool. It is not as straightforward as something like Cushi or WordPress, etc. But the idea is that once you understand their language and their template system, their engine, as they say, you can actually grow quite a bit with this, and then you're simply just adding on aspects to it. So kind of a different approach, but something that's really neat. You can see that, feel free to look through their documentation. They're actually, the reason I found them is because what runs their system is this really cool PHP platform or library called CodeIgniter that's really wonderful, and you can take a look at it. And you can even use it freely without having to purchase anything from Expression Engine or Ellis Labs. But Expression Engine is kind of powerful in what it can do. And really the idea simply there is getting us from static to dynamic, building something that'll go beyond very simple ideas into really what the web is. And really you'll notice that I mentioned a couple of different ideas here. Building something from scratch with PHP, building from scratch with Cold Fusion, those are all absolutely feasible and really great ideas. The ones I'm presenting here are not necessarily replacements for those, but instead easy ways that you can get into this a little bit, and then as you grow with it, you can start to customize your ideas and maybe not end up using a platform and use something that's your own instead. I know quite a few developers that once they get comfortable with the ideas, they actually end up just producing their own library, their own warehouse of code, and that's what they start each project from. That becomes their framework to work with. Obviously, a key feature here I just wanted to mention is that as soon as we start letting our users add content, the very next thing we have to handle is backup of that content. And the nice thing for us is that a lot of web hosts, a lot of providers actually have that built in. They can automatically run what would be called a cron job. They can run something in the background that says every day, every 2 days, every week, etc. Back up all the data, sending me an email when it's backed up, all kinds of easy things like that that you can access remotely, etc. So this isn't even difficult. And some servers even automatically do that. You just have to ask when you want to look at the backups. But definitely something to remember that it's going to be essential to what we do. Really, the last thing I wanted to mention here is that, again, as we start building more things for our users, getting insights into what our users are doing is going to be essential. I've listed several analytic tools here. Crazy Egg has some wonderful visuals. Litmus is a great thing if you're trying to build HTML emails because they can allow you to easily test multiple ideas on multiple platforms and email clients. So they really have a lot of insight into what users are doing. But the main one we want to look at is that really great free tool called Google Analytics, which, because it is free, because it is built on the Google platform, which means most people, I don't even know if it's less than 90% of people have a Google account, you can easily set up an analytics account. All you need to have is a live website that you can add a little bit of JavaScript to, and then you can begin tracking what are your users doing, what are they clicking on, where are they coming from, and this is pretty great, and I'll let you look through their features. But not only do you get insights into what website did they find my website from, but how many people are coming here. And a really cool idea is called ROI, return on investment, or another one's called conversions. And some of those are saying if a user comes on a website, they're just a person on the web, what is the conversion rate of them becoming a customer? Where if I say they're a customer, you can designate saying they're a customer when they've signed up for the newsletter or when they've purchased a product. You can start to track your content on your pages and see how many people get to the website, click through to what they need to, and then sign up for a newsletter, sign up for an appointment, order that product that's on sale. And you can see not only how well you're doing, but you can also grow that with campaigns and see and provide A/B testing, provide different statistics to see how can we improve what we're doing. And really, ROI, return on investment, means if you're doing this for a client and the client says, how well are we doing? I invested all that money for you to build this project. Is it working? You can give them statistics saying, look at where you were before we redeployed the site, and look at where you're at now with how well the site's going. So really straightforward ideas. It's great that this platform has continued to develop. Google is always adding new ideas, and there are things like real-time statistics for your users. You can see what devices they're coming from, what OSs, what browsers, all kinds of great stuff. I definitely recommend looking through here. There are paid features where they can kind of guide you through improving your campaigns, but because of the fact that it's mainly free, it is one of the best ones I can recommend to you as far as what to kind of step your toe in and see how you can add analytics to your site. And the implementation obviously is very simple. Alright, so those are the main ideas I wanted to cover with you. The basic concept is, as long as we're ready to deploy, we have to get some things in place first. The sooner we ask the questions, the better. Some money is involved here, whether that's the client paying for it, the project manager, or yourself. But the idea is that we're investing in what we're going to be building, so let's pick the right choices. Let's make sure we set up reminders, or that the service reminds us when we need to renew those investments that we have, and then let's continue iterating to make a better product. Alright, have fun.